Good afternoon, and once again, welcome to VetNet. My name is Jason Dozier, Manager of Plans and Operations here at Hire Heroes USA. I'm joined by two of our esteemed veteran transition specialists, Noah Thomas out in our Seattle or Auburn, Washington office, and Stephanie Herron-Cuthbert out in our Alpharetta, Georgia office. We are here with Hire Heroes USA, and as you can see, we are a national organization. Specifically, we're a nonprofit that helps veterans find employment through empowering veterans to better articulate their military skill set to make them more competitive in the civilian job market. So we'll help you with your resumes, we'll help you with your interviewing, networking, the whole 9 of 8 needs for your job search. And today, specifically, we'll be talking about resume writing and going through the entire process of what we do when we get a resume with a veteran that we work with, and in terms of transforming that resume into, from something that might not necessarily make that veteran successful in a job search into something that will definitely work in their favor when they're looking for work. Before we go into the class, a reminder to all y'all out there who have not gone on VetNet or seen VetNet or watched one of our videos, we do training events every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Like I said, we do training events, interviewing, resume writing, networking, LinkedIn. So pretty much anything you can think of as far as what it takes to be successful in job search we cover. We've been doing these training events for about 2 years now, so we strongly encourage you to go to YouTube and watch our videos that we've done for the classes. If you're interested in interviewing or one of those things that I mentioned before, definitely check us out, and we will get you as squared away as possible, especially we know how hard it is to get out there. So without further ado, Noah and Stephanie, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon, Internet. Like I said, my name is Noah Thomas. I'm with a veteran transition specialist here with Hire Heroes USA. I come from the Marine Corps, served, and when I left, I went back to college, and now I'm here helping other veterans. I really enjoy my work. So that's a brief introduction on me. I'll let Stephanie take it.
Thanks, Noah. My name is Stephanie Herron-Cuthbert. I am also a veteran transition specialist here in the Alpharetta office. I bring a background to you from veteran services, human resources, and education. And let's get started with the class, Noah.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. So today's class is resume practical application, really how to maximize your resume, what we're changing, and why we format it the way we do. You may have caught a few of our other VetNet classes on resumes, and now you want to know, okay, well, if I want to tailor my resume, how do I do it myself, or what goes through the veteran transition specialist's mind, when they're tailoring that resume. For those of you old enough to remember going and renting a video from Blockbuster, a resume is a lot like a Blockbuster video. The hiring manager goes in and he sees all these resumes, like those videos, and they're looking at the back of them, and they just scan them for a few seconds to decide if they want to rent that video or if they want to rent a different one. Your resume is no different. A hiring manager is going to be looking at between 8 to 10 seconds. So it's really important that you highlight your skills, your assets, and kind of what you bring to the table for that organization in a concise way. So we're going to go through step by step and show you how to maximize the profile. At the very top, you will see on this resume, this is originally one that was sent in by a veteran to be formatted by Hire Heroes USA. As you can see, his name and address is on top, phone number, and that's great. You really want to put your name on top because that's what they're going to remember, and that's what they want to hear. What you want to do is for the address, it's really important that if you're looking for work outside of where you live, say you live in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're looking for work in Texas, if you have maybe a relative or something like that with an address there that you can use, you can tailor address to the location you want to live at. That opens up your possibilities. A hiring manager may not necessarily want to hire somebody that lives across the country and pay for moving expenses. If you don't have an address, don't worry about it. You can reach out and find another way to connect with that employer. But you just want to highlight, name, address, phone number, and then email and LinkedIn account if possible. Now, the email on this one, we see hawksfan1983 at yahoo.com. Don't try to email that. I'm pretty sure it's a made-up email address, but as most of you do, something that you enjoy and year of birth. That might be fine for a personal email address. As far as a professional email address goes, you want to have something a bit more professional. First dot last name, first initial dot last name, something along those lines. As you see on my Hire Heroes email address, nthomas@hireheroesusa.org, professional email address. We recommend using Gmail, it's kind of industry standard, allows you access to things like Google Hangouts here. But also on top of that, if you have a separate email address for your job search, then nothing goes into spam. And so the only person you should be getting emails from are potential employers. And that way, you're not going to miss an email from anybody that's important. So keep a separate email for the job search. Like I said, I recommend that Gmail account. Try to keep it professional in that first dot last name. If you have a very common name, if your name's Joe Smith or even Noah Thomas is a pretty common name, you can add a number in there. Try to not make it your birth date that year. You don't want to give them a clue to how old you are, be it young or too old, before you even start. Professional email address with your name is the best way to go. Stephanie, do you have anything concerning emails?
No, I agree with what you're saying about the emails. It must be professional.
All right. Thank you. Right below that, if you do have a LinkedIn account, and I highly recommend that you do create a LinkedIn account. If you're having trouble or don't know much about it, please check out one of the other VetNet classes, or you can ask one of your veteran transition specialists here at Hire Heroes to create that link or help you create that LinkedIn account. The LinkedIn is essentially it's a 21st century handshake. It is the futuristic reference sheet to today, and many companies only put their job postings on LinkedIn, and it's just a great way to network. It's really going to help you catapult that resume into something that doesn't get lost in a pile of papers. It could mean the difference between being seen and not being seen. So ensure to have that good LinkedIn account, sure that's easily accessible on that resume.
Can I add in, Noah?
Definitely, Stephanie.
Before you actually put it on your resume, your LinkedIn account, make sure you ask your VTS to review it for you, because if your account is not up to date, I would suggest that you not put it on your resume until you do update it.
That's
and
a
your
great point.
VTS will help you.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's a great point. Like I said, LinkedIn being that 21st century handshake, being that reference on your resume, if a hiring manager looks at it and goes to your LinkedIn account and it just doesn't look right, they might pass. So make sure that's up to snuff. That job search is a full-time job in and of itself, so you want to maximize all your potential there. Now, the next step is really what they call summary qualifications, or professional summary. And for the Hire Heroes USA, the professional summary is very similar to what they call an elevator speech. It's something brief. It's a small paragraph, 5, 6, 7 sentences that can be read and summarize kind of how your experiences have been, kind of what you contributed, your accomplishments. Now, this isn't a responsibility list or anything else like that, because anybody can be responsible for anything, but accomplishing something takes a little bit more effort. And so the very first thing you'd want to put is either the title of the position that you are or that you are seeking, that you were qualified for. And so for Al here, he wants to be a logistics professional. He wants to work in logistics, some sort of warehouse or management profession. And so the very first word I would put is logistics professional, because that's going to be the very first thing that a hiring manager will possibly see in the job search. So I put professional summary, and below that, logistics professional. And then, since he is a military veteran, I would say military veteran, because that's a huge accomplishment. Only a small percentage of the United States is military veterans, so include that in there. It demonstrates automatically that you have team, you have initiative, you have all these experiences that make the veteran a desired employee. And then years of experience, and this varies. Generally, the resumes go back only about 10 years. That's about the focus you want to do on a resume, because like I said before, it's that blockbuster highlight. You just want to read the back cover and kind of see, the highlighted experiences or highlighted accomplishments in your resume. So if you have 20 or 30 years of experience, you don't need to include it all. This gentleman, we put 12 years, specifically because he's going for a very specific job. And so 12 years, and that kind of encompassed his whole profile there. But generally, you can put about 10. If you have 10 years, if you have 4, if you have 2, whatever it is. And then similarly, if you have a security clearance, you can add that in as well. Now you want to take the 4 or 5 sentences that you have for the professional summary and be able to market your accomplishments, the highlighted ones. Now, depending on the job you want, if he's going into logistics, I would focus on markets, on how much material maybe you provided, how much things you, how many accomplishments you've had. And so this gentleman here, as you can see, it's a broad accomplishments here. As we learn later on, he did some recruiting duty, so it's a lot of area he covered. That's a lot of people he's going to be working with. Just process improvement. You want to focus that accomplishments. And do you have anything to add to the professional summary?
I think you hit it. I would just say, this is a place also where you will focus on your certifications. You would definitely want to highlight that. If you're bilingual, you want to highlight that. That summary is just where you're going to put most of your key skills towards the job that you're going for.
That's definitely true. It's the, if you can summarize yourself professionally in 20 seconds, this is the place to do it. And you want to write it in the third person, no me's or my's or I's, but it's the 20-second summary of you. So definitely, if you can speak another language, if you have other education, either military or civilian that's applicable, please add it in there. And the next step is we're going to add a couple bullet points below the professional summary. And these are industry-specific bullet points, mostly for keyword searches. Oftentimes when you submit a resume, it will go through a computer process that looks for specific keywords in the job. And you can usually find those words from the hiring managers or from the job posting itself. But it's just to add on to your professional summary. And this can be anything from systems management, integrated logistics, or even more specific to something you say if you're going into a technical field, you can add network IT or any of the coding, A++ certifications, things like that. You can add to the bullet points to really catch the hiring manager's eye. And the reason it's broken down like this is just how the human eye works. We want to scan things fast. We're looking for specific words. By adding the bullet points in there, you're breaking it up for ease of reading for the hiring manager. And the veteran transition specialist here at Hire Heroes, they can definitely help you with any formatting issues you may have. Maybe you're not the best at Microsoft Word or in any of the other programs. More than happy to help you out with the formatting there.
Good to go.
Stephanie, anything to add on the bullet points?
No, I think you hit it, Noah.
Great. So let's see if we can move on here. You got those, Jason?
Yeah, I'm having a little technical difficulties with the bullet points.
All right, so we're having a little bit of technical difficulties on the bullet points. But you understand that there is, usually we include maybe about 9 bullet points. You don't want to overwhelm it. So it's to keep it simple. I mean, everybody in the military, we all know that term, that keep it simple. Same thing applies in the job search. If you try to overcomplicate it, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So the next step, while Jason's getting set up there, once we get those bullet points done, we have employment history. So what we put, Hire Heroes USA does on their employment history is professional summary. Depending on your work experience, you put professional summary, and then you want to do what industry standard is reverse chronological. Now, reverse chronological means your most recent employment to, like I said, 10 years back is about industry standard, so about 10 years back. And since this gentleman, he served in the United States Army, you can see, it says recruiting station commander there, has the dates listed. That's good, but let's put the organization he worked for, and since that is right now the United States Army, we'll add that. If you previously served in the military and you went on to a new position, you can put that as well. But this gentleman, we'll change employment history to professional summary. Professional work history or professional experience, and then there we go. And we'll change employment history to professional experience. But United States Army, and as you can see, the locations on there, we're going to put various global locations for this particular gentleman, and that's because anybody that's went beyond boot camp has served in various locations. If you've served for longer than a few years, it's most likely, if you served in the past 15 years, that you were deployed somewhere, or at least spent some time in different states training. So various locations is fine for the Army. If you want to get more specific, depending on the job you apply to, you can break it down and follow the title and then location, but for this example, we'll just do United States Army, various global locations. Al here, he served as a recruiter most recently. He knew he was separating from the Army after recruiting duty, so he wanted to get prepared and get his resume done. Now we can put recruiter. Recruiter is kind of an industry standard term. Everybody's going to know what that is. If you have a less standard term, myself, I was a Stinger gunner. Most people don't know what that is. Most employers don't want a Stinger gunner because they don't know what it is. You know, you shoot down helicopters, and that really doesn't apply to most jobs. However, most people do understand recruiter. Most people understand team leader. Other terms like that. If you're having difficulty translating your specific MOS, feel free to contact somebody here at Hire Heroes USA. More than happy to help you translate that into something civilian employers understand. So we have recruiter there. We have the dates that he went on recruiting duty, which is 2011 to present. Because like I said, this gentleman is transitioning out of the service. And then you want to do bullet points highlighting his accomplishments. Now, when I say accomplishments, that differs from responsibilities, because anybody can be responsible for something. I can put you, I can make you responsible for 10 people, but if those 10 people just wander off and do their own thing, you didn't actually accomplish anything. But if you take those 10 people, you form a team, and you get something done, that's an accomplishment. So right here, we're going to change some of his bullet points. So the first one is he exceeded company objectives by 42% while directly supervising an area of 3,000 square miles. That's an accomplishment. There's percentages in there, there's numbers. You want to include quantifiable data, so numbers that reflect those accomplishments. The reason we type up the numbers in the numerical form instead of writing them out is the human eye is attracted to numbers, and so it will make the hiring manager slow down a little bit and take notice of those bullet points. You usually want to add, depending on your job, you can possibly add five bullet points. It's a little stretch. Just your highlights. Remember, this is the highlight of your summary. Think about it like a first date. You're going on a first date and you want to make a good impression, but you don't want to scare anybody off by saying too much, and you don't want to let them think that you're a little off by saying too little. So about four bullet points is a good standard. 5 if you have maybe very specific career you're searching for and your experiences in the military line up with those to which you're applying. So we're changing the bullet points, making sure it's formatted correctly, and then the next step is the next job title. This soldier served for longer than 2011, so we'll go back a little bit, and the next job he had was Supply and Logistics Staff Manager. So we don't need to include the United States Army again. We'll just put the job title, Supply and Logistics Staff Manager, and the years that he worked at that position. And this one, once again, if you have maybe an MOS or a job title, the Marine Corps would call it a billet. Don't call it a billet on your resume because the Army thinks billets are places you live, and civilians don't know what billets are. And so job title is usually what we go for. And keep it something, like I said, we understand. Everybody understands the Supply and Logistics Staff Manager. It's a pretty basic term there. Even if that's not necessarily one that would be on your NCOER or your FIT rep. But it's something that he did. It's just the civilian equivalent. Same deal with the recruiter. We want to go back and put those highlighted bullet points. Now, for Supply and Logistics Staff Manager, since Al here wants to be in logistics, we're adding a little bit more bullet points than the 4 or 5 that is standard on most resumes, because we want to focus on that supply and logistics experience. He has a lot in there, served a long time, 4 or 5 years in that industry. So we want to highlight that and make it kind of the meat and potatoes of his resume. So, like I said, with accomplishments instead of responsibilities, you have things like initiated and completed 12 plus or over 12 financial liability investigations totaling $58,000 in property value. So we have the numbers that he's done. We have the value of it. Everybody across the board understands money. They understand personnel. They understand equipment. Numbers make sense. And if you are an 11 Bravo or an 0311 or an Intel guy, it doesn't matter. You worked with people and you worked with either money or something that was valued at money. And the private all the way up to a 4-star general, They all have varying responsibilities, but they all deal with a lot of responsibility that you wouldn't find usually in an 18-year-old in the civilian sector. And so take that responsibility, kind of figure out how much the value that you use, and continue on from there. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, my thing towards the experience is that everybody, we all do our job and we think everything we do is important, and it is. But when it comes to your resume, you can't fit every single thing. So as Noah, just to stress, as Noah said, you want to pick out your key, great accomplishments and put them on a resume, which can change from each job that you're applying for. But the key is, if you're going for logistics, you want to point out all of your logistics highlights. That's it, Nora.
Thanks, Stephanie. So we're highlighting those logistics. We had the bullet points on there. And the next step, we can go back a little further. Like I said, we're going to do about 10 years. And so the next one would be, he was a property and inventory manager. Now, the property and inventory manager, as you can see, actually looking at his resume here, this is assistant general manager at Pizza Hut. So while he was recruiting, he was working at Pizza Hut. He worked there for a few months. That's fine. It doesn't really necessarily belong in the resume, though. Anything really under 6 months doesn't need to be included. With Pizza Hut, it doesn't really apply to what he wants to go into. It's more a secondary job. And his military experience is so strong, there's really no reason to include it in the job search, or in that resume. And so we're just going to remove the Pizza Hut completely. If he wants to bring it up in the interview, that's fine. That's a separate conversation we can have. But as far as the resume goes, you want to wow the employer. 4 months at Pizza Hut, if that's what you have, that's what you have. But his resume would be so strong without it that we can just take that completely off. So we're just going to focus on his military experience right now. And that last bullet point, or the last job title, to go back that 10 years, was the property and inventory manager. Once again, we're sticking to that logistics theme. He wants to work in logistics, so property and inventory manager, that's what he did. Like I said, it might be a little bit different on your NCOER, might be a little bit different on your fit rep, but the experiences are the same. Like I said, if you're an 11 Bravo, if you're an 0311, you're doing property and logistics somehow. You're inventorying something, so if that's the route you want to go, there's ways to demonstrate that to employers. So once again, add those 3, 4, 5 bullet points in. Make sure you're using those quantifiable data. Make sure that they have numbers in every one. Don't be repetitive. As you see, we have 3 titles here. We don't want to keep on using the same bullet points over and over and over again. There's no need for that. If you have similar jobs, say you worked at Fort Hood and then you went over to Fort Bliss or Fort Meade or wherever you're at, and you had the same position, it's fine to combine those. But you want to show a progression in responsibility, a progression in work history. You don't just want to add it all together, and you don't want to include every single little thing that you did, because then it just gets jumbled together and it's difficult to read. And so as you see here, the property and inventory management, we have armor here. You can take out the military terms, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen that in our previous VetNets. The military language is great if you are in the military, and it's very difficult to understand if you're not. I come from a family military, and I still confuse them when I speak in Marine Corps terms, and sometimes when I'm speaking to somebody in another branch, it's still confusing for them when I use the military language. Everybody has their own language. Each unit has their own language. Each branch has their own language. Kind of filter that out. Save it for hanging out with your buddies. Save it for the bars or something else like that, and keep it professional in the hiring manager's language, in the company's language that you want to apply to. If you have difficulty and you only know how to say the oorahs and hoorahs and booyahs, then work with the veteran transition specialist. We're more than happy to help you out and coach you through that. There's a time and place for that. But so for the resume, we're just going to focus on kind of a broad language with those bullet points. So once you go back about 10 years in your resume, you have concise, quantifiable bullet points. The next step will really be education. Depending on where you've been, or if you're continuing school, if you've already left the service and continued your education, if you're still in the service, continue education, or if you only have education in the military. Military education is still great, doesn't necessarily transfer over all the time. There's a lot of certifications you need to get in the civilian side, depending on what industry you want to go into. Logistics, thankfully, is not one of them. So he wanted to step into logistics. So let's focus on education. So right now he has, 36 credit hours, 26 credit hours at this college, and then high school diploma. If you are in the military, really past World War II, you either graduate high school or you have your GED. And so high school education is not required. Pretty much everybody graduated high school now. So that can just be removed across the board on all the resumes. As far as the credit hours, once again, that's if it's applicable to the job search. This one happens to not be. If you are in school, say IT, or maybe business management or something, it's fine to put, in progress. Add the degree, add what university you're going to put in progress. Al here, he was not. He had not attended any school outside of military education, and that's fine. His military education was in supply and logistics. That's the area he wanted to work in when he left the military, and so he had that experience. And so what I did is, instead of adding, say, a very vague this many credit hours at a university and high school diploma, we went back, went through his work experience, pulled up those old NCOERs, and found what courses he attended. Unit supply specialist courses. He went to primary leadership development, advanced leaders common course. These are things that are marketable to employers. Now, they may not necessarily understand what you learned in the course, but these are all terms they can understand. Property book, most people understand what a property book is, and that's going to spark that conversation, because like I said, this is the first date. That second date's going to be your interview. Let them ask you what you learned in those courses and demonstrate your experience and how it can contribute to that job in, for Al, logistics or whatever other field that you want to get into. So we have his education on there. And then we have awards at the bottom. Now this is quick and concise. These are your personal awards. For Al, we just included a few here. So his Army Commendation, Army Achievement, Meritorious Unit Commendation. If you have anything that includes Valor, Meritorious, these are all good things to add. For those of you that have been to Iraq or Afghanistan, feel free to add your campaign medals in there. Leave off the general awards, the Global War on Terrorism, the National Defense Service Medals, the ones that are pretty much across the board everybody gets. Just focus on your accomplishments. It's tough going from the team aspect of the military and switching over to the me aspect of the job search, but that's what you got to do. You're your best advocate in the job search, so focus on those awards. If you don't have any awards or they're sparse, don't worry about that. There's other things you've done that you can highlight. Focus on those. You include and levels of achievement, things like that work just fine. As you can see here, the formatting is a bit different on the Google Drive as we're demonstrating this, but in a Word document, this is a one-page document. Now, the industry standard for resumes, as you've probably learned in some of our previous classes, are between 1 and 2 pages. Now, Al's resume here was about 3.5 pages beforehand. Unfortunately, that will kick out most computer systems. They will put a limit, say, don't show any resumes over 2 pages, and so his resume won't even be seen by person. And that's unfortunate, because obviously, as you can see here on his revised resume, he's very qualified for the position that he wants. And so we revised it down to that one, max 2 pages. You can fit about 20 years of experience on 2 pages if it's formatted correctly. And what that's going to do is, going back to that blockbuster analogy again, and you don't want to read a big book to figure out what movie you want to watch. You want that real. You want that. You want something that has action in it. And on 1 page, you can see all that action. You can see the numbers. You can see his education and experiences really quickly. And it's something that a hiring manager is going to want to call. And I can tell Al, actually, he did transition straight from the military and went into a very nice logistics position with a well-known car company. And so it is definitely possible, and he used this resume as well. But it took that translating those terms, getting away from his military terms, getting away from a very broad, spread-out resume that included things like Pizza Hut, maybe not necessarily some education that wasn't applicable, and going to be more concise and more direct with his accomplishments. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to Al's resume here?
I just wanted to go back to the awards. One thing, it's important not to list all of your awards. Only list like your top 3 to 5 awards. What you did was important, and we don't take away from it, but it doesn't. You don't need to. Once again, with education, you don't need to list everything if it doesn't reflect. One thing I did wanted to Noah, you did talk about when you said education. I thought was a great point. I had someone who had a resume and they attended to like 4 different schools and they had like 4 credits here, 10 credits there. It's very important that if it's not going towards a job, there's no need to list it if it's not a completed degree. And there are colleges that will take your credits and translate them to civilian, take your military credits and translate them to civilian. That's something you can Google, and that would be a good thing for those people who do have attended, who has attended several colleges and has credits from each college to try to get maybe an associate's degree or even higher, depending on how many credits. But I just think they need to be mindful on education and awards on how much you put on there.
That's a great point, Stephanie. Hiring managers want to know where you're going. What's in store for you in the future. Now, the resume gives a brief glimpse of, like I said, your accomplishments, so that the hiring manager knows that you can contribute in the future. But you don't want to rest on your laurels. You don't want to sit back and say, well, I got a bunch of awards and I have a bunch of education from a bunch of different places, and so I should get this job automatically. You want to demonstrate your value for the future accomplishments. Don't be looking back, be looking forward. And like Stephanie said with the education, you can put a bunch of random courses on there, but if you're not focused, if you're not, it's going to show kind of a ship without sails, to say. And you want to be, you want to be heading in a direction. You want to demonstrate that to employers. You want to hiring managers, companies, they're looking to hire the right person for the job. So they do want to hire veterans, but if you learned in the military, because it is quality experience, it is quality education, it is quality management. As we say in the Marine Corps, everybody with something on his collar is a leader. Demonstrate that leadership through your resume. No matter what MOS you had, it can go from that 3-page kind of randomness that Al had to the position here. And you don't necessarily need to pile on every single thing that you did. Save that for the interview. But right here, highlight it, get in there, and impress those potential hiring managers. Now, with that, the resume, you have a solid resume. Don't rest on it alone. Make sure you network. Veteran transition specialists, we're more than happy to help you network. That just goes back to that LinkedIn profile. It needs to go hand in hand. You don't want to get lost. You don't want this resume to get lost in a pile. Make sure it gets seen by somebody, and we are more than happy to help you out with that. And that concludes the practical application class from me. Stephanie, if you have any last-minute things, if not, we'll open up to questions.
No, I agree with everything you said. Just reach out to us for assistance if you need it.
So that will conclude the class. Do I have any questions from anybody viewing this broadcast right now? No immediate questions? All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I appreciate you watching. Please feel free to contact myself, Stephanie, or the Hire Heroes USA team, and we're more than happy to walk you through these steps and facilitate and contribute to your job search. So thank you very much.